With the most recent patches, Civ VII is in a significantly better position than it was at launch. Reviews and player count have been steadily increasing over the past couple months, and everything from the map generation, which I would say is now up there with the best in the series, to the UI, which, although aesthetically still has a long way to go, functionally, the amount of information clearly on display is leaps and bounds better than we had 6 months ago. But in terms of gameplay systems, it does feel like Firaxis is making the puddle wider and wider without adding too much depth in some areas. So for example, we have had a ton of new leaders and civs added, which all added more options: Ada Lovelace, Simon Bolivar, Genghis Khan. Most recently we now have Blackbeard, who provides a very unique playstyle, granted, but core gameplay systems remain awfully similar to what they were at release. Trading, districts, victory conditions, and the all too controversial Civ swapping mechanic, none of these have really been changed since launch. So let's get straight into it, talking about that last feature, the all-important age transitions and Firaxis' plans to let you play as one Civ for all 3 ages. Prior to the most recent 1.3.0 update, Firaxis hinted at the future of the Civ switching mechanic and that they were internally playtesting ways to play as one Civ continuously throughout the ages, allowing you to choose a civilization from any age and guide them throughout your journey through history. Now, I've been a staunch defender of the age system in Civ VII since launch because I think it does a largely good job at making the early, mid, and late game of a Civ campaign interesting. It's super clunky at the moment, but it's fundamentally a fantastic idea in my mind. And closely related to this is Civ switching. And this may surprise you, but on paper, I'm totally fine with Firaxis adding this in as an option. For whatever reason, playing as one Civ for 10,000 years is historically accurate to some people, but your civilization evolving over time isn't. Now, I can't understand this personally, but clearly a lot of people feel this way. So if this gets more people on board to Civ VII, I'm in. Because you know what'll happen to all the never swappers? If I was a betting man, I'd say they will get the game and opt to play as the same Civ for 2 or 3 games. But I guarantee, eventually, they'll get to that Civ selection screen and go, you know what? Let's just give it a try. And they'll realize that it's way more fun to have the option to play through the game with abilities that evolve over time to suit your current age, rather than having no abilities for 2/3 of the game. Once you can get over that mental barrier, you'll realize just how fun the mechanic is in practice. And for what it's worth, that statement applies to a lot of areas in Civ VII. If you can stick with it until it clicks, it's a ton of fun. Of course, this all depends on the implementation. I'm not expecting Firaxis to give unique abilities to all Civs in all ages, probably just some minor stat boosts to stay relevant if I had to guess, but we'll see. And while we're at it, let's change the Civ unlock requirements from simple tick boxes to instead intertwine with the narrative event system. I understand that you have to abstract this stuff in one way or another, so 3 horses equals Mongolia may seem a little reductive, but it is what it is. But once you reach this unlock requirement, let it start a multi-part narrative event quest to adopt that civilization. Something like become the Golden Horde or claim the Mandate of Heaven. Start a big event chain that progresses throughout the crisis to make it feel like your Civ really evolves over time instead of just changing all at once in the main menu outside of the game. A common complaint about Civ VII is that cities often end up feeling the same. The 1.2.5 update kinda helped in this respect by making buildings more expensive as you built more of them, but I viewed this as more of a band-aid fix while they worked on some better and more organic ways to make cities feel more distinct. So here's some ideas to bring back district adjacency bonuses that make it so geography and your decisions play a bigger role in city planning. Firstly, and I'd love to hear your feedback on this one because I'm a bit iffy on it, but building adjacencies could change from era to era. Science in antiquity is currently a resource adjacency, but why not make it mountains in exploration and buildings in modern? Something like that anyway, right? Because right now, you kind of just put your districts down in antiquity, and then you overbuild the same building type in the same spot every age. There's often very little or no reason to actually mix it up. In which case, if you're always putting your culture buildings in the same spot every age next to the mountains, it makes overbuilding feel a little superfluous. Also, and here's the big change, and I appreciate this would be a lot of work, but the quarter could change depending on the combination of building type contained therein. So science and science, or science and gold, makes a different quarter. For example, in antiquity, the library and observatory makes a campus. Or in the exploration age, maybe the university and the guild hall makes the Royal Commerce Society or something like that. Maybe these different quarters grant different adjacency bonuses. Campuses get additional science from nearby food buildings like hospitals, while the Royal Commerce Society could give additional trade route range for every adjacent gold building. And these are just some of my tamer ideas for quarters, by the way. Maybe in Exploration or the Modern Age, you could combine a science building and a production building, let's say, to make a research and development hub. And these R&D quarters could produce a new random Empire resource for you every 8 turns, depending on how many specialists are assigned to it, like treasure fleets do. Call it an engineering division, call it whatever you want. Science and gold could make a stock exchange. I could do this all day, right? This would be a fair bit of work to map out all of these combinations, but I think it would pay absolute dividends for the future of the game and bring back some of the magic of Civ 6 city planning. There's a few other areas of the game that I think could use a bit of work as well. I think victory conditions and legacy paths could and should be expanded. We know from the most recent dev diary that Firaxis is looking into exactly this. With the introduction of expansionist and diplomatic city-states, I think it's safe to say that we'll have legacy paths accompanying them soon enough. Further to this, I think randomized and or branching legacy paths would go a long way to mix up the goals you have from age to age. And don't get me wrong, I think people focus in on the legacy paths a bit too much. They're generally just things you should be doing anyway, and not really meant to be the main focus of the game, in my opinion. But Firaxis has definitely sold them that way, especially in the tutorial, so for newer players. I can't really blame them for thinking that you should just follow those goals and have the same objectives every game. But that aside, we'll see what this looks like. I think, for example, diplomacy could be something involving endeavors in antiquity if we want to be really basic, independent powers in exploration, and then the World Congress in modern. And that's right, bring back the World Congress, baby. And for the love of God, do not model it after the Civ 6 World Congress. Bring back the Civ 5 model, which is one of the coolest things I've ever seen in a 4X game. Allowing your players to vote on changing the rules of the game as you're playing it. So good, so good. Bring it back, I miss it dearly. And some rapid one-liners that could do with a bit of love. I think strategic resources should be a requirement for certain powerful military units. We need to bring this back rather than just buffing them. So I think you should need horses to build cavalry, you should need oil to build tanks, and so on. Bring back some of that friction between neighbors where they have resources that you don't. I think Civ 6's Eureka system would be a great inclusion as well, especially with the mastery system. You could make it so that the masteries are actually locked until you complete the Eureka for that tech. So you have to actually master that tech to unlock the mastery, if you know what I'm saying. Like how you unlock irrigation, but then you might have to build 6 farms along a water source to unlock the irrigation mastery, you know? That would make a lot of sense to me. So which fix do you agree with? What's your one change that would save Civ 7? Drop it below. Word on the street is that Firaxis actually reads the comments on my videos, so leave your honest, constructive feedback there. And finally, if you've made it this far, a few special mentions. Firstly, if you haven't heard, I'm taking part in the 2025 Civ Give. This is a yearly event run by the Civ Show that raises money for a children's charity. There'll be a big multiplayer game with a ton of other Civ content creators in December, but I'll put a QR code on screen here and there's a link in the description if you want to donate. It's a great cause, so give generously if you're able to. And finally, a shout out to our channel members who very generously support myself. That's Chris J, Int Paladin, Shamal TV, Diana, Awesome Daisy, and Chase Bandy. Thank you for all your support. It's very generous and completely unnecessary. But that's all I've got for you today. Don't forget to leave a like and all that good stuff if you enjoyed. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.